Love that new math.
That's wild. The new math.
Just see how they
Let's
do
deal with
it.
the new math.
Go ahead, brother. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, sorry.
Just see how they
Let's
do
deal with the
it.
new math.
I'll just go ahead, brother. I'm sorry. See how it's
No,
done.
sorry.
Just see how they
Let's
do
deal
it.
with the new math.
This episode of the Grand Rising Show was brought to you by Autochthonous Assembly, where the real work gets done. Autochthonous Assembly is a gathering of the minds that do the work. Now, for many of our first-time subscribers and first-time visitors, you may be wondering who Autochthonous Assembly are. You can find this information about our mission statement and our core values on the website at autochthonousassembly.com/about. We are a nonprofit organization dedicated to raising up Indigenous American voices by using genealogy, also known as family history, or your family tree, which is the study of families and the tracing of their lineages and history. Genealogists use oral interviews, historical records, genetic analysis, and other records to obtain information about a family and to demonstrate kinship and pedigrees of its members. Our core values are the foundation of our company, which is essential to our success and serve as a lens through which we evaluate every business decision. Those core values are, but are not limited to, integrity, which is knowing and doing what is right, respect, which is treating others the way you want to be treated, responsibility, which is embracing opportunities to contribute, and servant leadership, which is serving the common good. Now, at Autochthonous Assembly, we have a couple of goals here. And our first goal and foremost of the reason why we do everything that we do is to ensure that we help you do your genealogy and connect back to your tribe and find out where you are from. Everything that we do from the standpoint of the Grand Rising Show and all the information that's posted on the website is dedicated to that one specific purpose, helping you find your genealogy, find your relatives, find your family so that you will know exactly who you are. And if you choose to, tie back into your tribe, whether that tribe is a Native American tribe, an American Indian tribe, whether it's allowing you to determine which house in Africa that you belong to, or what clan of Scandinavia or Europe or France that you belong to. Either way, our goal is to do just that, help you find out who you are so you know exactly where to start. We are not here to tell you who you are, and we're not here to tell you who you are not. We're just here to help you discover your beginnings. Another one of our missions is to help you become financially independent so that you can help your generations for the next 7 generations and be able to put a stable foundation for you and your relatives. And if you should choose to use this information that we provide free of charge to help not only yourself, but your community and your tribe, then we will do everything in our power to make sure that gets done as well. And remember, our goal here is to make sure that we help you get exposed to this information to put you in the best situation possible. So now what I'm going to do now is return it back over to the panel to see if there was anything I missed, and I will go ahead and get set up so we can get ready and get digging into this information. Panel, take it away.
Warning, warning, warning. Hard hats, pickaxe, shovel, boots required.
Grand Rising, Grand Rising. Hope everyone's doing well this rising. And I see y'all cutting up early, really early.
I ain't even
Already.
gotta do nothing. I can come in clean on this one. I'm not. How y'all doing? Grand Rising. Y'all cutting up for me.
Crazy.
Grand Rising, everybody. Peace to y'all.
Everything's good. Hope everyone's going well. Hope everyone's doing well. Sorry for the echo. Didn't realize one of the mics was hot because I was trying to get everything situated for the show this rising. Make sure we can be heard. Obviously, we can be heard, but give us some ones in chat to confirm. If you can hear myself and no sellout balls will be joining us shortly.
Yep. Mic check. Mic check.
They just be cutting up, going in.
David Corey interrogating Pamela Hall about sounds heard, but you heard that, right? You will admit to that, right? At the very least.
Did you hear what I hear? Did I hear what you hear? Did we think we heard the same thing anyway?
He said it was a trick. See, I didn't mean to bring it back up. I'm sorry.
It don't matter, man.
Shout out to the chat.
Grand Rising to the new subscribers. As you can see, we're a little live over here. Hopefully you'll be able to go onto the website and get the information and find out what we're about at toxinassembly.com/about. And see what our mission and our goal is. Are you about to say something, no sell out?
Nope.
Okay.
Almost forgot I was off mute.
Don't do that. I already did it already.
Friend going.
Grand Rising to the Toxinist Assembly silent majority. You make up our numbers, and we definitely appreciate everything that you do. We appreciate hearing from you with your emails and in a form, so we thank you for that. And just because we don't see you, don't mean we don't see you. And to the best chat on earth, and the craziest and the funniest. Hope everyone's doing well.
Funny. Or funny.
Funny is an understatement.
That's what I got so far. It's early.
Hold on. About to do the roll call shortly. Give me a second. Alright.
What you want me to do?
Yes, please do. Yeah, go ahead, please do.
All right, from the top.
Whatever, dude.
806, David Corey. Peace, y'all. Peace, David Corey. Peace, Ohio player. Michael Brown Harris and them. Peace. I said David Corey already. Copper Color Ancestor. Peace. Pamela Hall. Peace, relative. Who else? Nature's Voice. Grand Rising. Lady J, welcome, and Grand Rising. Golden Moon, aka KD, peace. Who else we got? Where we at? Mr. TJ, Grand Rising. My finger is slow scroll. TMH, what up? What up, no sellout? Thanks, TMH. Copper Chopper 803.
Did you just shout out yourself? You didn't just shout out yourself.
And I did your part too. Because you ain't say what's up back. I said shout out to you.
I'm going back on mute.
Nine Ether Unka Pukau. If I said that right. Salute to you too, sir. Or ma'am. Sir. Yeah, that's sir. We talked to him before. Where we at? Powhatan 9 man. Peace, Grand Rising. Hope everybody can hear me. Saw one in the chat. Charles Clark, Grand Rising, welcome back. Enrique, what's going on, Grand Rising? And that is everybody so far in the chat. Peace, y'all. Grand Rising, y'all. I'm going on mute.
How you gonna go on mute?
Because you was next.
Really? I can't. I'm not. It's not gonna happen today. Not today. Not today. Not this rising.
On my own. How you feel? How you feel? I'm right here for you, nigga. Stop living.
You should say it on your own. This song should never been sung. I'm just saying. But, you know, stranger things have happened.
Oh, true indeed.
Grand Rising, Mike Easton, Grand Rising, Natha? Is that pronounced Natha? Netha? Please give us the correct pronunciation because we don't want to mispronounce your name. So, thank you.
Yeah,
Natha or Netha? Yeah, well, not intentionally. Anyway.
Yeah, I know, right?
So.
Peace, Natha W. Grand Rising. And welcome to the Cab Grand Rising Show.
Exactly. I'm going to hit this clock. It's Netha. See? That's why I'm glad I asked. Thank you, Netha. Appreciate you for correcting us. So it's Netha. That's what I get.
Yeah, you don't need to be pronouncing.
Don't do that. don't do that.
I'm just saying.
What's up, Jay Susquehanna?
Peace, Jay. I'm just saying, you know.
Don't do that. Anyway, I'm about to.
I know.
Yeah, we about to punch this clock. So everybody with a ratchet, y'all know what to do. Hand out them shoulder pads, them hard hats. Somebody get on the front end loader.
Oh, we need some shin guards too, because there might be some low blows. I don't know.
Somebody man a jackhammer. Excuse you?
I just said we need some shin guards too, some low blows today.
Okay. Yeah.
Protect the kneecap.
Yeah. Gotcha. Yeah.
Protect them tibias and fibulas.
Okay. So can I punch the clock? Can I punch the clock? Can I punch the clock?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you. Appreciate you. Alright. Ohio played and dropped like 15 links already.
I was about to say shout out to Ohio player for phonetically spelling the pronunciation of his screen name, because I did not know. I was saying Pegwes and Poet. PGs and Poe. Appreciate that. Shout out. And helmets on, y'all.
All right. So, what did we learn yesterday from the show? Besides the fact that I should have brought the portable Wi-Fi, which would have given us more power, so we could have done the show correctly. But outside of that, what did we learn yesterday?
Well, in the first 5 minutes, I learned that. No, I'm joking. You can go ahead. Because there was a few videos we had to learn from. I'm just saying. No, I'm joking. Could you sum it up for the people, sir?
What we learned is that the French needed to remove the Natchez Indians really bad. So much so that when they captured some of the Natchez and sent them to the islands, Caribbean islands, and some end up making it to the Choctaw. The French went and attacked the Choctaw. And then they flooded them. They flooded 10 states, 56 feet above the tributary, to flood 10 states. And if that wasn't enough, they flooded their levee to get to the Choctaw and the rest of the Natchez in the quote-unquote less populated area of Louisiana. That's right, 80 miles wide. The river became 80 miles wide.
Which is ridiculous for. I mean, I don't consider that a river anymore, but I don't know much. That's ridiculous. That's a body of water.
We realized there was three wars. Basically, had three. They being the French, and the Sioux, and the Iroquois, and along with some of the Choctaw, because the Choctaw split, had three bites at the apple attacking the Natchez Indians.
Join the meeting.
And who that?
My bad.
Who you talking
I
about?
don't know. I heard join the meeting. Oh, is that you? Nope. Let Mike Bones get his mic right. Get it right. Get it tight.
Maybe we ain't want to tell him it was Bones. Maybe we wanted it to be a surprise. Never mind.
My
Anyway,
bad. I mean, whose birthday is it? My bad.
what else did we learn? That don't tell no sellout anything if you don't want to keep a secret. That's
no,
what we
tell me
learned.
that's a secret first. That's the. I can keep it now. Just let me know ahead of time. I ain't supposed to say nothing.
He held water like a strainer holds water.
Like a what?
A strainer.
I don't oh, a strainer. You said a strainer. Like a spaghetti strainer. It'd be a little bit of water at the bottom. When you... The whole thing ain't got holes. Oh man. My bad, I didn't mean to interrupt.
David Corey says, but just how do you measure 80 miles wide? Well, if you already know how wide the river was originally, and then you look at what it is now, that might be how they did it. To tell you the truth, David, I couldn't begin to tell you.
Yeah, I wouldn't know. I mean, that does sound accurate, Tim. You've seen it before, and now you see it.
Put it this way, it's a lot wider than what it was. How about that?
Frida. Join the meeting.
Huh?
So somebody just joined us.
Frida.
Yeah.
Grand Rising. Star 6 to unmute your
Yourself.
mic
Mm-hmm.
if you're calling in. Yep,
Grand
there we go.
Rising, brothers.
Grand Rising, how you doing, Freezer? Good to hear your voice.
I'm good. I'm good to hear yours. Yesterday was insanity.
That's an understatement.
I'm good. No, actually, I'm going to say, see, you guys got this William McIntosh thing going on right now. Let me just say that this is exactly when my relative comes into play, and yet that has been completely whitewashed out of the whole story up in there. Renty, and that's when Rentyville becomes, it becomes. It is right up in this part that you guys are posting right now. As for yesterday's show, oh my God, there was just so much to it, so much substance to it. I was just truly, truly blown away, about the water. The water just everywhere. I actually, in the 60s, I actually walked and played in some of those rivers in Arkansas and in Kansas City. So just to hear that, it was truly, truly mind-blowing. It was so devastating. It was just the first drowning that I ever saw was in a man-made river in Arkansas, and I was probably like 3 or 4 years old, and I remember my mom walking me up in between all of the people, and she showed me this young lady's face, and she said, "This is what we look like when we are dying, and you will never, never be one of those people." She brought me to California, and she threw me into the ocean to swim. Hence me traveling the world to this very day, surfing.
Wow.
That's awesome. Oh, that is awesome.
But I mean, you guys just touched on so many things yesterday. It was just like, I wanted to keep notes, but I was just so in the moment and also trying to stay attached, stay connected. But I will also say this. I have also noticed that something else is going on with YouTube. You guys had it wasn't just a problem with remaining streamed. It was also a frequency problem, with the audio and stuff. And I literally had the same problem 2 nights ago with uploading a video. It had the same sort of warbling frequencies, and I'm starting to wonder if this is intentional with us when we are sharing information with each other, because in a way it's still like flooding us. It's still like throwing water on us, throwing water on circuits when we're sharing information, and suddenly you have to like stream and stuff in the midst of such delicate and such intense information about who we are and who we've become. And, again, tribal war is still war, no matter what, whether it's inner, external, international, or whatever. It's still war. Family, you know what I mean? So just yesterday was so overwhelming, and then we get to this today, the creeks, and it just touches me in even a more personal spot, to be perfectly honest, because I feel like, actually, going back to the creeks, another one of my relatives was involved in Supreme Court with the Creek Nation thingy, which is just pull it up, RENTIE Supreme Court. Creek Nation Supreme Court thingy, and you will find that my relative was one of the attorneys during that whole thing. And this whole thing is just, I don't even know what to say, about today, because this is just, we're not growing. Keep sharing this information. Just keep pulling. Keep throwing it. Keep shoving it down our throats. Just keep doing it. Thank you so much, God.
Well, we definitely appreciate you bringing your perspective and bringing how you were affected as a young child and how your mother reacted and what that did for you and how that has shaped your life. So thank you for sharing that information. I mean, that's something that we cannot duplicate or replicate, because that's your story. That's what you experienced. So we definitely appreciate you for sharing it with us.
Story.
So yeah, thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you. Yeah, seriously, on the real, pull up the whole RENTIE and this whole creek thing that you're running today, and you will find that my family was all up in this, seriously, in the Supreme Court, in land grabbing, in city, growing, just all of that nonsense. And I don't really see anything flourishing to this day in a weird sort of way. But, continue with the show. I'm going to be standing here on the sideline doing some exercise while I'm digesting what you guys are saying. So, all right. Handle your business, brothers. Handle your business. I relinquish the mic. Later.
All right, take care, Frida. We definitely appreciate you, sis.
Peace.
Peace.
So that's what's up. Shout out to Frida. Thanks for coming on and dropping those jewels and those bombs. I'm pulling up the I see two court cases. One is Renty versus Renty. The other was Renty versus McCoy. So we'll put those in the form and digest those later. But yeah, thank you for sharing, because at the end of the day, that was something that she experienced. So that's one of the things we gotta recognize, and that's the reason why we have the forum. Because in the event that we get shut down from YouTube, or what we're doing with YouTube is altered, we have to have our own forum that we can gather and save this information. That's why we encourage everyone to log into the forum, go to the forum, share your information on the forum, because that site belongs to Autochthonous Assembly. That is our site. They can't come in and just do what they want. That's our site. So hopefully y'all will start doing that. Again, all the information that's up there, you retain ownership of it. We're not going to use it without your permission, and whatever you contribute is yours. So hopefully that helps. So what's going on, Bones? How you doing, bro?
Oh, nothing much. One of them days.
Yep. You got some cloud cover down there?
Whole house had a stomach virus.
Whoa,
Oh man.
the whole house?
He running. So he was running from that. Okay. All right.
That's
Really?
what happened when you have all the neighborhood children over.
Oh man. Oh, that impromptu day off? Catching up with him?
Oh, down here, what? They've been out of school since Friday. They go back to school tomorrow.
Man, I wish I would have went to school down there when I was younger.
I know, right? Spring break in the fall. Let me get that.
Ain't nobody asked me how I feel about that.
Yeah, I don't.
Oh yeah, no, you don't matter.
Yeah, I don't think they're really concerned about that. David Corder forum is friendly. Good, David crazy. He said the forum is not friendly. It is friendly. Anyway, where were we at before we were interrupted?
He said boys sound like he called you bows. Bows. Oh man. Yeah, David Corey, something wrong with him. And that's all right. Now what else we gonna do?
We're going to actually start with the Redstick Wars, which are basically defined or described as the Creek Wars. And they're also run consecutive with the War of 1812. So there's a lot to digest. There's a lot to cover. Grand Rising Trab, I appreciate you, bro. So we're gonna get into that. And then we're gonna, you know how we do. I said, you know how we do. So the first link I'm putting in there is for the Redsticks. And I wanted to put this in proper context, not context as you put in your eyes to see better, but context, meaning contextualize, to be able to get a better orientation of what we were talking about, or perspective, if you will. I wanted to put in the definition of red stick because I heard it. I had an idea of what it was, but I really didn't know. So we're going to define what it is. Of course, we're using Wikipedia. And there are 13 reference sources from books to archive records to encyclopedias. So those are the resources. And we'll be able to share the screen today so you'll be able to see what I see. And it's no sellout is reading. That's right, David Corey. The Redstick Wars, aka the Creek Wars, aka the War of 1812. Lectio de Facilio. So, are you able to read, no sellout, or you need me to read?
I will be able to read, just not this instant.
Okay. I will go ahead and read. Let me share the screen. Give me 1 minute. There we go. So I'll be able to see the screen shortly. Okay, there we go. So we're going over what the actual Redsticks are in relation to the tribes. David Corey says, I'll read it. Yeah, David, but can't nobody hear you.
I'm listening.
God, I gotta love them. Redsticks, also red clubs. It's a name deriving from the red painted war clubs of some Native Americans, aka Creeks or the Alabama. Refers to an early 19th century traditionalist faction of these people in American Southeast, made up mostly of Creek and the upper towns that supported traditional leadership and culture, as well as preservation of communal land for cultivation and hunting. The Redsticks arose at a time of increasing pressure on Creek territory by European American settlers. Creek of the Tower Towns were closer to the settlers, had more mixed race families, and had already been forced to make land cessions to the Americans. In this context, the Redsticks led a resistance movement against the European American encroachment and assimilation. Tell me some, can y'all hear me? I'm on paragraph 2. No, we can't hear you, David. Why am I entertaining? In this context, the Redsticks led a resistance movement against European American encroachment and assimilation, tensions that culminated in the outbreak of the Creek War in 1813, initially a civil war among the Creek. The conflict drew in the United States forces while the nation was already engaged in the War of 1812 against the British. So what it sounds like to me is that they're saying that this war started after 1812. From what I'm seeing, it was a war that they're calling the War of 1812, but that's all. So let's do a little bit of see what we got for the background. It said the term Redsticks was derived from the name of the 2-foot-long wooden war club, or a ta'asa, used by the Creeks. The preferred weapon of the Redstick warriors, the war club had a red-painted wooden handle with a curve at its head and held a small piece of iron, steel, or bone projecting from about 2 inches. The Redsticks facing came primarily from the upper towns of the Creek Confederacy and supported traditional leadership and culture, including the preservation and culmination of land, cultivating, healing, while opposing assimilation to the European American culture. It said the Creeks had a matrilineal culture in which persons' place and status were determined by their maternal clan. The Creeks of the lower towns, who comprised the majority of the population, had adopted more European American ways. In addition, they had more intermarriage among their women with white traders and settlers and economic relations with United States settlers. At the same time, the mixed-race children, such as Chiefs William Weatherford and William McIntosh, were generally raised among the Creek Benjamin Hawkins, who was first appointed as the United States Indian Agent in the Southeast and as a superintendent of Indian affairs in the territory south of the Ohio River, who lived among the Creek and the Choctaw and knew them well. So hold on. Really? That's what we doing?
What an Indian agent, Indian superintendent.
Why you all? Really?
No.
Why you? I'm trying to hit the
Back on
dagos.
that.
You what?
They back on that kill the Indian, save the man philosophy, I see.
Exactly. But here's the part, because remember, Frida just talked about McIntosh. And here we go. William McIntosh. And then William Weatherford. I have some Weatherfords on my father's side of the family, which is interesting. So I guess these are the Creek or the Choctaw that split off to help the French fight the Natchez, right? Try to guess. It says the superintendent of Indian affairs in the territory south of the Ohio River lived among the Creek and Choctaw and knew them well. He commented in the letters to the President Jefferson that Creek women were matriarchs and had control of children when connected with a white man. Hawkins further observed that even wealthy traders were nearly as inattentive to the mixed races children as the Indians. Benjamin Griffith argues that Hawkins failed to understand the closer relationship that children in Creek culture had with their mother's eldest brother, closer than with their biological father because of the importance of the clan structure. So this gives us a better viewpoint of how the mixes of the two cultures were looked at or were viewed specifically by the Europeans. In this instance, the French. Because the mother took the child to her clan, then the oldest, her brother or the child's uncle was the one that was basically responsible for raising them, or helping them become.
Basically, that's how you would keep the clans growing. That's how you keep the clan intact. It's not that you're having men and the men from your clan are leaving, forming other clans.
Right.
This is how you would keep the men in the clan.
Right. Because they have one of the more important responsibilities to continue to raise the young people.
Because remember, once a male marries another female of another clan, he becomes a part of her clan now.
Right.
Yep.
Okay. Then it goes on to read that the time in question was once increasing pressure on the Creek territory by European American settlers. The Creeks of the lower towns, who were closer to the settlers and had more mixed race families, had already been forced to make numerous land cessions to the Americans. The Redstick War, more commonly called the Creek War from 1813-1814, was essentially a civil war as the Creeks struggled among themselves for their future after the Lower Creeks issued a statement of unqualified and unanimous friendship for the United States. Tensions broke out into violence. Redsticks attacked the Lower Creek towns. The Redsticks were backed by the British, who were engaged in the War of 1812 against the United States, and the Spaniards, who were trying to retain a foothold in Florida and in territories of the west of the Louisiana Territory. So here's the problem I have with that statement. It says that the Redsticks were backed by the British, who were already at war. If you're already at war, how you gonna back somebody?
They had extra clones for the Clone Wars, I guess. I don't know, man.
The first rule of war is don't divide your forces. That's the first rule. It's like taking some of your pieces off of a chessboard and go put them on another chessboard and go play that. Doesn't make any sense.
We'll just tuck mine in.
Because you're fighting two different wars. Unless it's the same war. Then that makes sense. But they're trying to make it seem like it's two different fights.
No, it's the same war. It's the same war.
Even down to the weeks.
They're just saying it under different names, but it's the same war.
Right. And that's the point I'm trying to get to, because they labeled them separate. They got the War of 1812, then they have the Creek War. And they said the Creek War started in 1813, further making it separate. But it's the same war. You make the date a year later, so it appears to be different, but it's actually not different. I don't know. Let's go further, shall we? It said the Redsticks were involved with a skirmish that became known as the Battle of Burnt Corn. The armed conflict occurred when a group of Redsticks were attacked by American white militiamen while returning from Florida with arms. In 1813, after the initial assault, the Redsticks regrouped and defeated these troops. While the militia had provoked the attack, frontier settlers and U.S. officials became alarmed about the Redsticks' actions on the frontier as a result. Let me ask you a question. It says there was an armed conflict occurred when a group of Redsticks were attacked by American whites while returning from Florida with arms. So I can understand you attacking people that don't have guns, but you're gonna attack people with guns on their own land in their backyard. You got to be a new type of fool.
I am that new type of fool. Or no, that's new attitude. Never mind. Yeah.
You stupid.
Nah, they the ones stupid.
Ohio player says new guns. I came with y'all. It says the Redsticks decided to attack the garrison at Fort Mims in Mississippi Territory, present-day Tensas, in northwestern Alabama. Okay. So then it goes on to read. What else? Stop it. Dagnabbit. Okay, it says in an attempt to reduce the influence of the Tensas Creek, who controlled the fort. Also at the fort were intermarried whites. The other settlers and their slaves from the frontier who had become alarmed after the battle that had occurred at Burnt Corn. Grand Rising Doodle Vision, he says Florida equals place of stockades. When you say stockades, excuse me, when you say stockades, Doodle Vision, do you mean stockades are where their weapons were held? It says the force with intermarried whites and other settlers and their slaves from the frontier who had become alarmed after the battle that had occurred at the Burnt Corn. Who were the slaves? Were these Indians from other tribes that they made slaves, or were they the women and children? Interesting. Let's see. The fort was poorly guarded, and the Redsticks overwhelmed its defenses on the 30th of August, 1813, killing most of the people who had taken refuge there. Estimates of the number of settlers at Fort Mims at the time of the massacre vary from 300 or so to 500, including white slaves in Lower Creek. Estimates of survivors who have varied. At the most, about 36 have been claimed. At least 100 Creek attackers were found dead at the scene of the battle. Interesting. It says, history graduate student Carl Davidson Manor, contrary to prevailing scholarship at the time, interpreted the attack in a journal article treatment as punitive expedition specifically directed against the Tensas, a group of Lower Creek who were separated from the core Creek values. Hence, Davis does not believe that Fort Mims attack was representative of the overall conflict between the Upper and the Lower Creeks. So it looks like, to me, the Lower Creek wanted to continue to mix with the Americans, and the Upper Creek, or Redsticks, was like, nah, we're not doing that. And thus a war broke out. So that would make sense, Charles. He said the children of the husbands were the slaves, because if they didn't go with the women and the men kept their sons, they probably could have labeled them as slaves. That's one way to look at it, I guess. So it says the massacre had significant short-term and long-term effects. Alarmed by the fall of the fort and understanding little of internal Creek tensions, settlers demanded government protection from the Creek, with federal forces otherwise engaged in the War of 1812. Georgia, Tennessee, and the Mississippi Territory raised state militias for defense and engaged Native American allies such as the Cherokees, traditional enemy of the Creek. Historians Frank L. Owsley Jr. suggested the state-sponsored military activity in the area likely prevented the British from occupying an undefended Gulf Coast in 1814. We know why they couldn't defend the Gulf Coast, because of the ESA, but that's another story for another day. So this is the thing that I find interesting. You're fighting a war, supposedly, but then the people are demanding that you protect them. Why don't you just have all the people? Again, I understand the lie that they're perpetuating, but at the end of the day, if these people demanded safety, why don't you just send them where you have the most fortified troops at to protect them? Unless the people that you were fighting weren't actually the British or the French, that you was actually fighting enemies. I don't know. Something to think about. It says General Andrew Jackson commanded the state militias to campaign against the Redsticks. The U.S. forces finally defeated the Creeks at the Battle of Horseshoe Bend in 1814 on March 27, 1814. His forces killed or captured most of the Creek, but some survivors escaped to Florida, where they joined the Seminole tribe and continued the resistance to the United States. Which, nothing about this war makes sense because they're dividing their forces. And no military strategist will tell you to do so. The war had begun over internal division among Creeks who resisted the assimilation and loss of traditions led by the chiefs William Weatherford, Menawa, and Peter McQueen in the upper towns. The war heightened to hostility between the Creeks and Americans in the Southeast. At a time when Americans had steadily encroached on Creek and other Native American tribes, territories forcing land cessions under numerous treaties but always demanding more. After the war, the Creeks were forced to cede half their remaining lands to the U.S. Within 20 years, they lost the remainder of their lands as a result of the Indian Removal Act and the forced removal to Indian Territory west of the Mississippi. Some remnant Creeks chose to stay in Alabama and Mississippi and become state and U.S. citizens, but treaty provisions to secure their land were not followed, and many became landless. Some Creeks migrated to Florida, where they joined the Seminoles. And this basically supports what we've been saying all the time. Those that did not leave, they end up staying and becoming U.S. citizens. But they lost their land because they were not considered European. Anything anybody got to say or want to add or got a question about? Yeah, Go to Moon Creek is a blanket statement because from what I'm understanding, it was all of the Alabama tribes that were actually fighting, not just the Creek. So, all right. Continue. Let's look at the memorial. It says the stockade and fort have been reconstructed at the historical site. The state installed a historic plaque at the Fort Mem site that notes the British had provided weapons to the Redsticks as part of the campaign against Captain Caleb Johnson, troops in the South during the War of 1812. I want to see about these two chiefs that cause these headaches. These mixed chiefs. William Rutherford. Grand Rising KSR. I keep wanting to say KRS. It says William Weatherford, known as Red Eagle, 1781 March 24th, 1824, was a Creek chief of the Upper Creek towns who led many of the Red Six actions in the Creek War, the Lower Creek towns, and against Allied forces of the United States. That's interesting. He was a mixed Creek who fought with the Red Six against the Lower Creek, who appeared to wanted to stay with the Europeans, or maybe I'm mixing them up. Guess we'll find it out as I continue to read. It says one of many mixed race descendants of the Southeast Indians who intermarried with European traders and later colonial settlers. William Weatherford was a mixed Creek, French, and Scots ancestry. Good grief. Scots. He was raised as a Creek in the matrilineal nation and achieved his power in it through his mother's prominent Wind clan, as well as his father's trading connections. After the war, he rebuilt his wealth as a slaveholding planter in Lower Monroe County, Alabama.
sense when you're taking POWs from Indian wars and those are your slaves.
All right. Then it reads, William Weatherford, known as Red Eagle, was born in 1781 near the Upper Creek towns in Coushatta. It is near the current Coushatta, Alabama, and was a Coasati Indian town near Hickory Ground. His mother says Seho III, a daughter of the Tabacha chieftain, and from the most powerful and privileged of all Creek clans, a Wind clan. His father, Charles Weatherford, was a red-haired Scotch trader and friend of the chieftain, and had married Seho III after the death of her first husband, Tory Colonel John Tate, in the summer of 1780. So she had already married another European. Seho was it goes on to read. Seho III was a mixed Creek, French, and possibly Scottish descent. As the Creek had matrilineal kinship systems, Seho III's children were considered born into her clan. Charles Weatherford had a trading post near the Creek village, built a plantation, raised thoroughbred horses for racing, and contributed to his family as a trader. This is interesting. Since Benjamin Hawkins first appointed as the United States Indian agent in the Southeast and then as the superintendent of Indian affairs in the territory south of the Ohio River, lived among the Creek and Choctaw and knew them well. He commented in letters to President Thomas Jefferson that Creek women were matriarchs and had control of the children when connected with white men. Hawkins observed that almost all of the traders, some wealthy, were likewise as inattentive to their children as Indians. That's what we talked about earlier. And Griffin explains, based on John R. Swanton, the lack of fatherly concerns was not an unnatural indifference. Given the Creek culture, the clan kinship system, and which established a closer relationship to children to their mother's eldest brother, more so than with their biological father. As a boy, William Weatherford was called Billy and Lamoshati, Lamokati, meaning Red Eagle by the Creek. After he showed his skills as a warrior, he was given the war name Hapenaka Fatusahai, or Truth Teller. He was a great-grandson of Captain Jean Mercand, the French commanding officer at Fort Toulouse, and Seho, a Creek of the Wind clan. On his mother's side, he was a nephew of the mixed Creek chief Alexander McGilvery, who was a prominent in the Upper Creek towns. So we can see this has already been something that was already going on. So you're talking about at least 4 generations of mixed Creek being mixed with either French or Scott. So this is not something that's new. This is something that's been in the works. It's already been happening. Looks like for at least 100 years. It says through his mother's family, Weatherford was a cousin of William McIntosh, who became a chief of the Lower Creeks town. The Lower Creek, who comprised the majority of the population, lived closer to the European Americans and had intermarried with them, adopting more of their ways as well as connecting to the market economy. Now, this is what I find interesting. You have 2 chiefs of those clans. Both of them are intermarried, or both of them are mixed races. And as we know, that some tribes, can't speak for all, and we don't know if this was the case here, but the tribes, as they started to continue with having their land encroached upon, felt it was important to have chiefs that looked more like the Europeans than themselves for negotiating purposes. But my personal opinion is all that did was just, for lack of a better term, draw out the process, or make the war go further. Because the Europeans was gonna take all the land anyway. So that's just my 2 cents. It says Red Eagle learned traditional Greek ways and language from his mother and her clan, as well as English from his father. As a young man, he acquired a plantation in Upper Creek territory. He owned slaves, planted commercial crops, and bred and raced horses, as did his father. Let me see who they got as listed as slaves here, because this is interesting. Come on. It doesn't tell exactly who the slaves were, it just gives you a definition of slavery, never mind. It says he generally had good relations with both the Creek nations and European Americans for years. He worried about the increasing number of the latter who were encroaching on Creek land. So he was more concerned with keeping the traditional ways, whereas it looked like it could have been his cousin, was more concerned with intermarrying and continuing to intermarry with the Europeans. I don't know. Doodle Vision says South African Bantu hunter-gatherers, perhaps? Probably not. So it goes on to read that the Creek of the lower towns were becoming more assimilated, but the traditional elders and the people of the upper Creek towns were more isolated from the European American settlers. They kept more traditional ways and opposed the new settlers. Weatherford and other upper Creek leaders resented the encroachment of the settlers into their traditional Creek territory, principally in what the United States of America called the Mississippi Territory, which included their territory in present-day Alabama. After the Americans improved the trading paths as a national road in 1811, I wonder who they used to do that. More American settlers came into the hunting territory and laid claim to homesteads. Various bands of Creeks, especially among the Upper Creek, resisted in a number of armed conflicts, but most of the more assimilated Lower Creek towns were forced to make land cessions to the United States in 1790, 1802, and 1805. Now, what do y'all see that's very important about 1790? Anybody?
Census.
The census.
Exactly. That was when the first census was held. First federal census was held, excuse me. The Lower Creek were among the 5 civilized tribes who adopted some European American style farming practices and other customs. As a result, most of the Creek managed to continue as independent communities while slowly becoming almost indistinguishable from other frontier families. Stop. Here's where the bleaching out or whitening out process starts to take place. And we got to remember they was doing this because they thought they could survive. So this is not pointing out something to ostracize or demonize or villainize. We're just calling it like it is, making effects. So it says that the Lower Creek were among the 5 civilized tribes who adopted some European American style farming practices and other customs, meaning they were over farming on the land instead of giving it time to breathe and rest. While slowly becoming almost indistinguishable from other frontier families. Bones. Doesn't that remind you of not being able to tell a person's race by us looking at their skin tone or their skin color?
Bingo.
Because if you're becoming undistinguishable, that means you're still Creek. But now you've become so mixed that can't nobody look at you and tell that you're Creek. They think that you are European. Which basically means that you can pass. It says the Upper Creek towns resisted the changes in the territory in these debates. Red Eagle counseled neutrality in the in the arrays of hostilities. Conflict broke out with the Creek nation between those who were adapting to assimilation and those trying to maintain traditional leadership. Doodle Vision says Melungeons. Okay, so these were who the Melungeons would be. Got it. Okay, then it goes on to read that leaders of the Upper Creek began diplomatic overtures with Spanish and British colonial officials to develop allies against the United States. In the debates, the Creek counsels those advocating resistance war rather than cooperation or assimilation became known as the Redsticks. And they soon became the dominant faction in Creek politics, which were highly decentralized. Redstick bands were to Spanish Florida. Hold on. Redsticks bands went to Spanish Florida to purchase arms. So here we go. Stop right quick. I want to pay attention to something. It says, those advocating resistance rather than cooperate or assimilate became known as Redsticks, and they soon became the dominant faction in Creek politics. Why do y'all think that's important? Because they didn't say just dominant in Upper Creek politics versus Lower Creek politics. They became dominant in Creek politics, period, if I'm reading this correctly. Now, remember when we was reading yesterday and it talked about how once the Natchez were removed, or they were starting to be broken up and got sent to different places, some of them ended up making it to the Choctaw, that they had no political presence. So obviously these Indians had some say in what was going on, if nothing else, at least locally within their community. So if the Redsticks are the ones that are speaking on behalf of the Creeks, both upper and lower, now we might be able to see why there is such a conflict. Because the lower Creeks who wanted to assimilate don't feel like the upper Creeks or the Redsticks who basically didn't want anything to do with assimilation, even though that their chief and majority of their tribe had already been assimilated in the mix. Something to think about. It says Americans learned that the Redsticks were bringing back arms from Florida, hastily organized a militia, American frontiersmen intercepted and attacked the Redstick party at Burnt Corn Creek. The later were returning to the Upper Creek towns with arms purchased in Pensacola and present-day Florida, while the Alabama militia tried to secure the arms and ammunition in the Indian baggage train. The Redsticks regrouped and fought off the Americans. In reaction to the United States attack on its men, the Creek declared war on the United States, already involved in the War of 1812 against the U.S. The British encouraged the Creek resistance. That doesn't make any sense. If you're fighting a war, you use all your resources to win one war at a time, not to separate or divide your forces. This is how we know this is some BS. And you would think by now, this is 1812. They had just not too long ago got finished with the quote-unquote Revolutionary War. Don't you think they would know the importance of dividing and conquering, or dividing and being conquered, when that's exactly what they did, quote-unquote, to the British? Let history tell it. So why would they then in turn fight a war the same way that the British lost to them? That's stupid.
The British not, the Indians are. You got Indians fighting for the British, Indians fighting for America, Indians fighting for France.
Oh, I'm agreeing with you, but I'm looking at it from the standpoint of the way they teach the narrative in school.
Oh yeah.
Because the narrative they teach us, right? Go ahead.
It's high in the fact. It's high in the fact that it's Indians on Indians.
Right. Because let history tell it. These are just Europeans fighting. you got the 13 colonies fighting the British. So now you got 13 colonies fighting the British. Again, after they already whipped up on the British and divided them, now these same colonies are going to divide themselves up, which is the same way they supposedly beat the British, and they're going to fight a battle the same way they beat the British. That doesn't make any sense. That's the whole point. I'm just saying, because that's a tactic that children in school can ask a teacher while they fight a battle the same way that they won. Why would they use the same tactic that they defeated the British with? But anyway, that's neither here nor there. What was it? Oh, it says, here's the thing that I found interesting. While the Alabama militia tried to secure the arms and ammunition in the Indian baggage train, these Indians had their own train. So they was catching a train. They caught a train to go get ammunition. Did anybody just hold on? Did y'all not catch that? Indian baggage train. I thought Indians were savages and didn't know how to catch a train. Okay. Anyway. Then goes on to read that Weatherford joined the Redsticks along the frontier where they tried to repulse American settlers from the Creek territory. Doodlevision says they had a network. Yeah, I can only imagine. It also reads that in late 1813, Peter McQueen and other Redsticks Weatherford participated in a retaliatory attack on Fort Mims. It was a hastily built civilian stockade on the lower Alabama River about 35 miles north of Mobile. Now, you can tell when the colonizers build something and when the Indians build something. So I'm gonna give you an example of what happens when the colonizers build it. It was a hastily built civilian stockade on the lower Alabama River. Hastily built civilian stockade. 9 times out of 10, when they say they built something and they're not giving credit to the Indians, they'll say it was built by such and such and so and so. When they build something and it's not really good, the truth comes out, but most people don't catch that. I don't know. Frontier American families.
That trap word. That trap word again.
What's that?
That trap word.
What's that?
U.S. citizens. We gotta also remember at this time, U.S. citizens also include Indians that didn't leave particular areas, whether they wanted to be a citizen or not. It's a catch. It's one of them catch-all words at this time. So anytime they say U.S. citizen, at this time, you might as well throw Indians in there too.
That's right. It's definitely right. So then it goes on to read that frontier American families in Lower Creek had retreated to the fort. So they left their homes to go to the fort because they knew they was going to be under attack, which was ineptly guarded, meaning it wasn't guarded well. Why? Because they was fighting already. The Redsticks gained entry into the fort and massacred the Lower Creek as well as European American settlers, including women and children. Estimates are that they killed up to 500 persons. Some 35 individuals survived. As a prominent leader, Weatherford was held responsible for the massacre, although there were reports he tried to prevent it. Then it goes on to read that the Alabama militia followed up with another ranger unit and maneuvered the Redsticks into a battle of holy ground. So I'm guessing that the ranger unit that the Alabama militia fought with, Grand Rising Copper Indio, that they fought with was some other Indians, either Cherokee Choctaw, Sioux, or Iroquois? Because now we're
Because you
starting
know what
to...
else you got to remember?
Go ahead.
Something else to put in context.
What's
There's
that?
not a large influx of Europeans living on the continent of America at this time. They don't start coming to what, 1820.
Right.
So who are all these people that they keep saying are U.S. citizens?
That's a good question. Not sure. Let me go ahead and read this part. Where we at? Deriving says slaves. It says Red Eagle barely escaped capture, jumping from the bluff into the Alabama River while on horseback, having repelled the Redstick invasion and a number of skirmishes and forced them on the defensive. The Americans regrouped for a final offensive. The federal government did not have forces to spare. Major General Andrew Jackson led a combined army of state militia from Tennessee, Georgia, and Alabama. There goes those volunteers, right, James? When you get in here, if you're able to come in, give us. We need to know who those volunteers were, what tribes they were. That volunteered to come help General Andrew Jackson.
Y'all know what happened, but everything got real low volume-wise.
What about now? Is that better? Is that better?
No, I was about to say,
All right, hold on. Give me a second.
it might be good on the front end. I know on the back end, audio sound changed.
Okay. Give me a minute. Mic check, mic check. Is that better?
Mic check
Yep.
myself. Mic check, mic check. Two. Can y'all hear me?
I'm not doing that.
No, I'm just making sure I was being okay.
Really,
Hold on here.
really.
Peace to the chat.
Hold on. How about now?
Bingo.
All right. But like I was saying, or like I was reading, it said that let me go back. It said that Andrew Jackson led a combined army of state militia from Tennessee, Georgia, and Alabama. Jackson's army finally isolated the main Redstick army along with hundreds of American hostages. Red Eagle played a decisive role in rallying his forces and trying to save the hostages from death. In the finale of the Battle of Horseshoe Bend, Red Eagle's rapid responses allowed various small bands of Redsticks to regroup and fight a rearguard action, but the remainder of the Redsticks were destroyed. Although the majority of the American hostages were saved, the retreating Redsticks killed dozens of them. It's interesting. Meanwhile, Red Eagle and some other 200 Redsticks escaped. Most of the Redsticks retreated to Florida, where they joined the Seminole people who had developed from Creek migrants and remnants of other tribes in the 18th century. Now, were some of those other tribes Natchez? Just out of curiosity. Red Eagle surrendered at Fort Jackson, formerly Fort Toulouse. Jackson spared Weatherford's life and used his influence and knowledge of Creek language to bring the Upper Creek chiefs to a peace conference. Go to Moon says, okay, what I miss? You basically missed the fact that Upper and Lower Creek were fighting because Lower Creek wanted to stay intermingling with the Europeans and Upper Creek didn't. But at the end of the day, the Lower Creek prevailed because they had more help, apparently, according to this narrative. It says Weatherford negotiated a new peace or a new treaty with the U.S., although he had to accept a permanent reduction in Creek territory, which was going to happen anyway, mind you. There was no way they was going to allow the Indians to keep any of their land. They had no intentions on doing it. They were just going to keep taking it from them piece by piece or force by force. It says Weatherford subsequently moved to the southern part of Monroe County, Alabama, where he rebuilt his wealth as a planter. He died there in 1824, a decade later. The U.S. forced removal of most of the Creek and other Indians from the southeast to west of the Mississippi River in Indian Territory, now Kansas and Oklahoma. Because think about it. All the Indians that did not leave ended up becoming what? They became citizens, right?
Yep.
So it didn't matter whether or not they fought. They was going to lose their land anyway. My thing would have been just take as many with you. You got to give it up. Go fighting, but that's just me.
Problem is, they became citizens and never knew it.
Yeah.
That's the real problem. That these Indians became citizens. All of a sudden now they're being taxed. Their land is being taxed, and they were never informed. That's how they seized the majority of it. They never knew.
Yeah. Godemont says both sides of his relatives are in these wars. But if you think about it, if you look at it, this is how, well, this is mostly all of, see, this is the thing that I'm glad that we had an opportunity to look at, because this is not just the Creek Indians. This is all of the Alabama. But they're saying Creek, but it's all of the Alabama, not just Creek. So then it goes on.
Any band or clan that's in the area at this time, this is going down to.
Exactly. So if that's the case, there was splits within them. There was splits with other Indians too. The Creek Indians, and I'm saying this using air quotes, they were not the only tribe that was having an internal argument about whether or not to assimilate with the Europeans, because the assimilation, as from what we can see, was not the problem. It was losing their ways, losing their traditions, losing their values, losing how they chose to do things from the standpoint of farming, raising a household. They were losing all of that. So I don't know if I'm misstating something. Please, somebody correct me, because I want to make sure we get it right. But that's what it appeared to me. It wasn't so much the assimilation, or it wasn't so much the mixing. It was more the assimilation and losing who they were as a people versus them being whitewashed out of history. It says William Weatherford married Mary Moniac, who was also a mixed race. They had 2 children, Charles and Mary. After Mary's death, Weatherford married Sophethelina Caney Talacto Moniac. She died after the birth of their son, William Weatherford Jr., born 25 December 1813. About 1870, Weatherford married Mary Stiggins, who was a Natchez and English heritage. That's interesting. I thought they say that Natchez ceased to exist. Anyway, they also had children, Alexander McGilvery Weatherford, Mary Levitia Weatherford, Levitia Weatherford, Major Weatherford, who died as a child, and John Weatherford. So, Weatherford's nephew, David Moniac, son of his sister Elizabeth Weatherford, was the first Native American graduate of the United States Military Academy. William Weatherford may have been a blood relative of the Shawnee Tecumseh and Tiscawatawa, whose mother and father were of Creek and Shawnee lineages. Their relationship may have been the foundation of the strong alliance between Chief Red Eagle and Chief Tecumseh during the Indian Wars. And remember, Chief Tecumseh was very pan-Indian, meaning they wanted nothing to do with the Europeans. No mixing, no nothing. It's interesting that they're related. Then it says William Weatherford may have been a blood relative of the Shawnee Tecumseh. Okay, I already read that. So that gives us some backdrop to who Chief William Weatherford was.
They pulled a slick move.
What's that?
You don't want nothing to do with them. So what you do, I bring your mixed family member in to negotiate with you now.
Mm-hmm.
family with family, it tends to change the negotiations. You know what I'm saying? From a leverage standpoint.
It does.
Be like, oh, you know what, Uncle, they ain't half bad. I'm part European. We family. It'll be okay. It's all right. Next thing you know, club in the back of your head.
Mm-hmm. Senor no sellout.
Yes.
Are you able to read now?
Yes.
Do you know where we at? No.
What?
It's the first sentence of the aftermath. I'll put the link back in the chat.
I was about to say, am I reading from the chat? Where is that? I don't see a top chat. I see it. Aftermath. Shady. The massacre. Is that where we're at?
Yes.
All right. The massacre. Mic check. Hold on. Yeah, my microphone.
We got you. We got you.
No. Peace, y'all. The massacre had significant short-term and long-term effects. Alarmed by the fall of the fort and understanding little of internal Creek tensions, settlers demanded government protection from the Creek. With federal forces otherwise engaged in the War of 1812, Georgia, Tennessee, and the Mississippi Territory raised state militias for defense and engaged Native American allies such as the Cherokee, traditional enemy of the Creek. Historian Frank L. Owsley Jr. suggests that the state-sponsored military activity in the area likely prevented the British from occupying an undefeated Gulf Coast in 1814. General Andrew Jackson commanded the state militias to campaign against the Redsticks. The U.S. forces finally defeated the Creeks at the Battle of Horseshoe Bend, 1814, on March 27, 1814. His forces killed or captured most of the Creek, but some survivors escaped to Florida, where they joined the Seminole tribe and continued resistance to the United States. The war had begun over internal divisions among Creeks who resisted the assimilation and loss of traditions led by the chiefs William Weatherford, Menawa, and Peter McQueen of the Upper Towns. The war heightened the hostility between the Creeks and the Americans in the Southeast at a time when the Americans had steadily encroached on Creek and other Native American tribes' territories, forcing land secessions under numerous treaties, but always demanding more. After the war, the Creeks were forced to cede half their remaining lands to the U.S. Within 20 years, they lost the remainder of their lands as a result of the Indian Removal Act and the forced removal to Indian territory west of the Mississippi River. Some remnant Creeks chose to stay in Alabama and Mississippi and become state and U.S. citizens, but treaty provisions to secure their land were not followed, and many became landless. Some Creeks migrated to Florida, where they joined the Seminoles.
That's crazy. That's crazy. Say again?
I was saying, who your people? So moving around goings on.
Yeah, it is.
No, but that was the trick. That's how you made the Indian landless. See, as long as they had land, you would never be able to remove them or defeat them, because they will always have home up under their feet. You start taking home away, it's hard to fight when you had no home. You had no shelter. The more and more I look, it's a very nasty trick.
It's horrible.
Mm-hmm.
Give me a second.
Because All they did was created fractions among us, and kept creating fractions. To a group of us became a smaller group that became a smaller group that we done got so small and so isolated that by the time it was going on, I mean, oh my goodness.
You don't even know your name no more.
Think about it. We just talking about the Americans and the British, but these tribes got pulled between America, the Americans, the British, and the French. So imagine, that's 3 fractions for every tribe to have to sit there and debate over.
Mm-hmm.
People want to deal with this person. People want to deal with that person.
Corn planters here, corn planters there.
If they spread it, anybody saying it looked like to me, they made sure they spread it our ancestors' military super thin.
Yeah.
So if it's war after war after war, the Indians are the majority of your soldiers. When is it time to rest? When was there ever time to rebuild, to put families back together? It's like they came on the shores and they've just been fighting ever since. And it's always taking our numbers down because they're not using their people to fight.
Yep.
James asks a very prominent question. He says, when were you making babies? That's the reason why the women were getting with the Europeans, because the men were fighting.
Mm-hmm. That's how you get all these mixed children all of a sudden in these times. Because think about it. It was war after war after war. The name of the war changed. But think about it. Who was the soldiers?
Yeah.
If the British is fighting the French, who was the soldiers? If the French fighting the Spanish, who the soldiers? When all these people fighting, who are the soldiers? Think about it. They didn't start sending mass amounts of their population to the Americas until 1820. $17.90 census show you it wasn't that many of them in the country.
And according to Benjamin Franklin, the majority of the world was still what? Swarthy.
Yep.
Come on now. That ain't no source. Is it?
Talking about Benjamin Franklin, what he said in the archives, the National Archives, that's not a source?
Oh, man. That hurt. That hurt. I apologize for even saying anything to me. Carry on.
And here's another thing that we got to pay attention to. The names like Creek and Muskogee were not the original names of the tribes. So not only do they change the names of the tribes, they become those tribes.
Yep.
And make those tribes the tribes that have become federally recognized.
Yeah. I
Wow.
mean, you're going to learn a lot of the federally recognized tribes got Americanized names and re-put back together, not the original people.
So
I'm
you
not
read.
saying it as a shot, just stating facts. Oh, sorry, TMH.
No, you're right, because that's based off coming off the back of what you said, because you mentioned DBAs a long time ago. They're creating they're creating these DBAs and putting their Indians in so they can tie into these Indians. And the real Indians are being written out of history. First you write them out of history through history, and then as you're writing them out, you change their names. Because the Creek are not Creek, they're Alabama. That was a tribe, they were Alabama. The Muskogee were Alabama. No, the Muskogee were the Uli, if I'm not mistaken, right, James? The Muskogee were the Uli. The Uli were the original 4 that came up from South America. Why do you not see Uli in any other history? Why do you see Muskogee?
Yep.
Because if you can't tie back to your tribe, then they ain't got to give you nothing. But how do you tie back to your tribe when you don't even know who your tribe is? So when trying to tie back to these names, which you don't tie back to, you're actually trying to tie it to a tribe that you don't belong to.
I mean, and like I always say, take a step back. Really take a step back and look at this painting now. Look at this painting that we're in front of. You can see them purposely breaking up tribes, purposely splitting people up, making the numbers so small. Then turn around, they create new tribes under new names. Some of these people, yeah, they are your ancestors that's in there because they would need some of them to make it legit. And over time, it changes. Like TMA said, they started bringing their own people in.
Here's the one question I gotta ask for those Indians that do blood quantum. In the 1800s, how do you determine blood quantum? I'll wait.
Yeah, please tell me who's running around with that blood kit.
How do you determine blood quantum in the 1800s? How do you determine blood quantum now?
The DeLorean? I don't know.
No. How do you determine? I'm asking. I'm not.
Eeny, meeny, miny, mo.
Somebody.
Because are you doing the eye test? Then that means you're being racist. If you're doing it by the eye test.
Oh, don't do that.
No, I mean, it's being real.
Don't do that. Nah, I'm telling them don't do that. That's not a good.
David Corey, yes, the Uli are Muskogee. They replaced the Uli with the name Muskogee. Just like they try to hide the Alabama and make them all Creek when the Alabama are a lot larger.
I mean, look how many people they made Seminole. Come on, man. You think our ancestors was running around calling themselves Black Indians?
So,
I mean, the telltale sign should be if the name is English, French, yeah, you need to do some more research on that name.
if you can't trace it back to what they determine is an unknown origin, which would basically be Ladino, then the name is not from your ancestors. I'm just saying.
And not to mention that these Native Americans, again, Native American is anybody who was born on the continent of the Americas. That's a Native American, so be careful. These first set of Native Americans, if y'all remember, they were allowed to identify as tribes. Again, these first set of Native Americans were allowed to identify themselves as tribes because they were born here on this land and had no allegiance to no other foreign king. That's why you got to do your research. That's why a lot of these politicians tie back into the land, and they know this. They got a big plaque with their whole family tree sitting over the fireplace. They're not playing games.
That's why if you're saying that you are Cherokee instead of Cherokee, that might determine where you get accepted and why you don't get accepted.
Yep.
Because there's a big difference between the two tribes.
Oh yeah, we know Cherokee. We know Cherokee was just the adoption pit. No, like I said, no shots, no offense, but this is just the history. They accepted everybody. Like they put an application. Want to be a Cherokee? Want to be a Cherokee? Want to be a Cherokee? Why do you think they're one of the biggest, most known tribes in relations with the government? They played the numbers game.
Mm-hmm.
More people you got under this identity, more resources that are allowed it to you.
Come on, man.
Now all of a sudden they want to be exclusive. You know what the Cherokee? You know what the Cherokee Nation reminds me of? It's funny, but it's not funny. It's like the Boys and Girls Club. All you gotta do is sign up, pay a little fee, and you're in there.
Yeah, you're in there. No special, no family lineage, no none of that. And that's the thing. If we know that the Cherokee just took on anybody, no family history whatsoever, that should even want you to definitely do some research if somebody tell you that name.
There you go, pet names again. And the reason why we're talking about this is not to beat up on anybody that's using the name. But if you're going to claim some type of legal standing in reference to that name, and that name was created by the individual you're trying to get legal standing from, and they know that they created that name, they can legally deny you because they know that you're not a part of that group. Why? They created that group. And people got to understand that when you form organizations, you can discriminate.
And a lot of these tribes, a lot of their charters are recent. 1920, 1930, 1940, 1960, 1980, 1990.
And when I say discriminate, I mean by voting. What do you think voting is? It's a form of legal discrimination. Now, Joe, I'm agreeing with you, Joe. I'm agreeing with you. I'm just speaking in general and just speaking so people can hear who can't see the chat. So yeah, we on the same sheet, bro. We on the same sheet. So, I don't care what you name yourself. What you name yourself is your right. But if you want to be legally, what's the word? If you want to be if you want to be acknowledged, you might want to use the right word. You might want to use the right phrase. This is not a shot. I'm just trying to help you out. And if you think I'm wrong, we can go to DC and pick an embassy, any embassy, and you go there and say who you are, and I promise you, I'll bet you $1,000 you get laughed off the planet. Come with whatever name you want to come with. Come with whatever name you want to come with. Let's go to any embassy in DC.
It's the plane, laughed off the plane.
And I guarantee you're gonna get laughed. You're gonna get laughed off. So if you want to lose a G, come see me.
A lot of people would wonder why would they go through all this. It's simple. Again, it's the part that a lot of us were never informed of. There are resources in your name that are released every year through these census. If you're not claiming it, you're not trying to claim it, you're not fighting to get yourself back to claim it, they're going to keep claiming it in your name and in your image. That's the whole reason why they did it. So now the resources stay in the loop with them. They dictating who comes in and out.
And you can't say that they didn't, and you can't say that they're keeping it from you.
Like we said again, they gave reservations for the ones that's left. The ones that didn't, that became citizens, the deal was struck for PIH.
Public Indian housing. Why would you need public Indian housing if you're on a reservation? I'll wait.
Yeah, they just forget in history that only a handful went to certain reservations and the rest became citizens. I mean, that's like the very key point of the story. I believe that they need to like have in big letters.
Man,
Now, you got stripped the U.S. citizens, no proof of anything. Now you got to pick up a job to work a 9 to 5 to go buy what you normally had naturally. They only had one motto: kill the Indian, save the man. Again, their motto, and you cannot forget this, relatives: kill the Indian, save the man.
Let's see what the definition. Let's see what the etymology of man is.
You gonna do this? Yeah.
What?
Nothing.
What happened?
Nothing at all.
I mean, we might as well. I mean, as much as we say it, I mean, might as well look it up. I mean, it does make sense, doesn't it?
Here we go. Keanu, what up?
There y'all go, so.
What? I'm just saying, it's rude not to speak.
Really?
Merman. Merman. Oh, man. Peace,
yeah, you can talk about them and look at them crazy, but these mermans made deals with Indians a long time ago.
Mm-hmm. So, man, a featherless, plantigrade biped mammal of the genus Homo, Old English man, human being, person, male, female, brave man, hero, also servant, vassal, adult male, considered as under the control of another person. Stop.
Hold on, I got a question.
You listen,
I
you
got
hit
a
it on the
question
head
first.
when you
Let me
said
go. Hold
servant.
up. Wait a minute. No.
When you said servant, that summed it up right there. Y'all better pay attention to the meaning of these words.
Why is the beginning of this a featherless? Why can't we be like scaleless? I don't know. Featherless, plantigrade? What does that mean?
It's in quotations. Maybe it's a play on words.
But now what about servant?
I mean, you know, Indians were known to rock feathers, right? I'm just saying. Brave man, hero, also servant, vassal, adult male considered as under the control of another person. From Proto-Germanic, man. Source also Old Saxon, Swedish, Dutch, Old High German, man. Old Frisian, man. German, man. Old Norse, mayor. Danish, mand. Gothic, mana, man. From pi root man. For the plural, see men. Sometimes connected to the root men to think, which would make the ground sense of man. One who has intelligence, but not all linguists accept this. Lieberman, for instance, writes, most probably man, human being, is a secularized divine name from Manus, believed to be the progenitor of the human race. Specific sense of adult male. Go ahead.
No, I was just chuckling.
Specific sense of adult male, the human race, distinguished from a woman or boy, is by late Old English. Old English used where or with to distinguish the sexes, but where began to disappear late 13th century was replaced by man. Universal sense of the word remains in mankind and manslaughter. Similarly, Latin had homo human being and vir adult human male being, but they managed in Vulgar Latin with homo extended to both senses. A like evolution took place in Slavic languages, and in some of them, the word has narrowed to mean husband, pa root, two other man roots, Yudho, Freeman, sources of Sanskrit, Vida, Lithuania, Vidas, Latin, Via, Old Irish, Fur Gothic, where, see, Widro, and near, man, a title more of honor than Uithero. Armenian, Ayer, Welsh, near, Greek, near, see near. Man also was an Old English as an indefinite pronoun, one people, they. It was used generally for the human race, mankind, by 1200 as a word of familiar addresses, originally often implying impatience, hence probably its use as an interjection of surprise or emphasis since Middle English, but especially popular from early 20th century. Then it goes on to read, a woman's lover by mid-14th century as adult male possession manly qualities in eminent degrees. From 14th century, man's man whose qualities are appreciated by other men is 1873. Colloquial use of the man for the boss is by 1918, to be man or mouse, be brave or be timid. From 1540s, meaning peace with which a game, especially chess, is played. There is no man on the chessboard. What kind of chess they playing? Anyway. Do you have man about town, man of leisure class who frequents clubs, theaters, other? It says man of leisure class who frequents clubs, theaters, and other social resorts. It's from man of the world. It's from the 14th century. A secular man, layman. By early 15th century, a man experiencing the ways of the world, one able to take things in stride, to do something as one man unanimously. Is from late 14th century. So I am as he that saith. Dude says you the man. Man is a class of people.
Mm-hmm.
So think about it. The Indians end up being educated and being placed into this class or this learning institution of man. The type of men that they were. And they were at the same time, that's why you had the division. Because you had the tribes that were starting to take on this persona or this class of man and getting rid of the Indian. So that man, the more you act like a man, the more preferential treatment you got. The more you were an Indian, the less preferential treatment you got. So then you go into the class of being a man, and then you go from being a type of man. So what type of man are you? Are you a white man? Are you a black man? What type of man? They had to reclassify you.
And then put you in another class that had another class that had another class.
Mm-hmm. Because when you're an Indian, that's something totally different than man. It's not the same. Indians are raised different than men. Indians think different than men. They process differently than men. Indians are not men. The colonizer was a man. The colonizer is a man. So they had to reclassify you as a man, and then they had to declassify your manhood by race.
Yep, put you in the category as man, then gave you a subcategory to that.
Who's the man? I'm doing that look.
So that's what it means to be a man.
if that's the sound of the man who's working on the chain gang, and the man is the servant, what is the individual working on the chains name? If you working for the man and the man is the servant, what is you?
Exactly. I'm just think that's all I get out my head. The man. Back in the 70s and 80s, man, I'm tired of working for the man. Who's the man?
You know?
That's that class of people that everybody's trying to be assimilated into.
A vassal at that. A vassal.
And this word has Slavic roots. The power root is man, which goes back to German. It's a German word. So,
Say, I can't curse. I free say it all the time. I can't curse you, but I can make you curse yourself.
yep. Shout out to LJ Free.
Careful what you choose to identify yourself and what you run to and hold on so dearly. Learn the history behind everything.
So if you think about it, those names are nothing more than classes of man. African American man, black man, Moorish man. Even Indians are a type of man. Cherokee is a type of man. So just remember that. Who is labeling you, or whose label are you wearing, and what are you allowing them to call you, and how are you how are you allowing that label to define you? So,
Hang on. When you identify as a black man, basically you became the vassal for this created stereotype. Think about it. You identifying as the host for this created entity.
mm-hmm. So,
And wonder why they don't respect it in society. Because society know it's created, it's fake, it's a misnomer. They know this much. Still ain't found the African American embassy yet. Anybody else had any luck?
and I'm right down here by all the embassies.
You trying to start one?
No,
Oh, okay.
I'm not African American.
No.
So why?
Anybody trying to start one?
Hey, I mean, they can if they choose to. I mean,
I'm just saying it would behoove some people to get that. I don't know. I would.
Doodle Vision said there isn't one in Harlem. Doodle, I don't subscribe to New York. I don't go there. I couldn't. I've been in New York. Yeah.
You got the Clintons in Harlem, but no African American embassy.
Man. Hold up. So on the census, Bones, what's being removed and what's going to be available other than for writing in purposes?
Oh,
Nick.
Negro being removed.
What'd you call me? Hold on, now say that again.
Negro is being removed.
Oh wow.
And notice they never call somebody. No one was ever described as a Negro man. It was always described as a Negro. It was always described as colored. You didn't become a man until you became a black man.
Yep.
Oh, I'm laughing off mute, my bad.
Basically, a black servant, a black vassal, a black minor.
So, gotta watch the trip.
Glad you caught up with the cab, Tiff.
So, do we want to start reading about the Creek War? Because we just talked about the Redstick. I mean, the Creek War was encompassed in the Redstick Wars, but we can get started. I don't know what you want me to do. David Corey says, TMH, you are African American. Why are you always lying?
Oh my God.
Man, I've never classified myself as African American because I didn't do the census in 2000. Hold on, yes I did. No, I didn't. I didn't do the census in 2000. I did the census in 2010 and I put Indian. So yeah.
And even on that, don't wait till census time. You can always send off for it, fill it out yourself, and like TMA said, get you a notarized copy and keep it in your records, in your family. So our family relatives don't have to wait 72 to 75 years just to see what we identified as. Eliminating the problems that we have now, these big gaps with the census. By the time you find out who was who, they done changed classifications, people done passed on, terminology done came outdated. See, Pamela Hall got a question. Go ahead.
While we're waiting on Pamela Hall questions, what's going on, Doodle Vision? How you doing today, bro?
Yes, James.
Man. And I use that term literally, figuratively. Greetings, Brother Thomas, and Brother Bones, Brother No Sellout, aka Eject Button. To all those in the chat, I apologize. I didn't get a chance to greet everyone individually. I've been kind of moving around. But yeah, it's gonna get very, very interesting because you kept mentioning something you're reading that all these people kept going to Florida to get ammunition and supplies. And then you're going to understand a little later on where the Buffalo Soldiers are all tied in. Just kind of interesting how everybody keeps going to Florida to get supplies. These were all savages and had no form of governance or military or navy or sense of direction, didn't know who they were. And I'm still trying to find in the reading, did we find any African slaves going on doing all these wars? Yep. Anybody?
Nope.
We would have to just replace everything that they're actually saying with the word Africans for that to be possible. The words on the screen. Yeah.
Hey, that seems to be the going trend. Hey, yeah, we're just gonna make up African.
It doesn't say it here, but I'm gonna say it. African timelines, people.
And if you notice, when they mention slaves, when they're talking about slaves dealing with Indians, there were no jail cells. So if you lost a war, then your people became slaves, but not in the sense that they're out there picking cotton. It was, they had to work off the debt of the cause of the war. And 9 times out of 10, those people intermarried, had children, so you could go to war no more. As Brother Bones had said earlier, it's kind of difficult to shoot your cousin in the face. This is what the tribes were doing. That's why you keep seeing all these different tribes. They say, oh, they disappeared. No, they just married into this other tribe, and they still kept their customs. They still kept some of the words in their language. That's why you keep seeing these long words amongst various tribes. You're like, okay, why do they not have any connection with anything outside of these words, but they're together? Because again, where were the prisons? There were none. So you worked off your debt, you became family, and we would fight no more. But keep looking at Florida, and just as a friendly reminder, remember, Florida stretched all the way to just about the coast of Texas. Mm-hmm. When they're saying Florida, don't just think of what you're looking at Florida currently today. Well, Florida goes all the way along the Gulf Coast into past the port of New Orleans. All that was still Florida.
Thank you for saying that. Appreciate that.
James, did you get a chance to hear Frida, what she called in this rising? I don't know if you did.
Yes, sir, I did, and that right there is one of the primary reasons why we do what we do, because people are able to relate and connect to who they are and where they fit in. Because so many times, and this is why I know we, when I say we, I'm saying we in general, not we within the groups that are listening here and those within A2. We hate history because we're always looking at history as the outsider looking in. We played no role because they tell you that you were an African slave, you're African American, you were slave, you were brought over here on slave ships, and they talk about the greatness of America. Let's make America great again. But you're an outsider. You are Ebenezer Scrooge looking on the outside when everybody's eating Christmas dinner. That's you in the snow with no shoes on. That's you. So this is why it is so important that when we know who we are and we tracing our genealogy and say, wait a minute, I actually have relatives that were involved in this, that were part of this, and not just reading it as an outsider, trying to say, whoa, all these people did all that and we were nothing. We were going around just, picking cotton and dealing with sugar cane, chopping all that stuff down. And I still ain't figured out, because if you're dealing with sugar cane, you got a machete, but you never chopped anybody's head off. Come on, son. But yes, I did. I appreciate her calling in. I hope that she calls in again and others call in, because is the number still in the chat?
Yes, it's atop the screen.
Yeah, it's always atop the screen. Hasn't changed. So
okay, I'm just checking, because you guys know I attended the Zoolander school for kids that can't read very good. So I just want to make sure the number was still at the top and it was still working. So they hit like a *6 to talk. And once they call in, is that still work?
Yes, it does.
So Brother Thomas, you didn't change the number since between last week and then change it back. This week has been the same number.
The number never changes. It always stays the same.
Never change. Huh?
Okay. I just want to check. So I know twice that Miss Frida has called in and she hasn't had any issues. Okay, just checking. But yes, I'm glad that she did call in. Like I said, others encourage. Please call in and share, because it makes it makes everything that's being done, not saying that it's not worthwhile, but it's just when you have more invested, it's like when I learned about my dad had me to buy my first car. He put down a payment, and it was, you know, a car that belonged to somebody else, and it was a fixer-upper. And when I fixed it up and I was working to get the parts, I was like, hey, you're not doing this in my car, you're not doing that in my car, don't touch my car. Why? Because I had invested so much sweat equity. So this is not us against them, or everybody sitting here and you got a whole bunch of teachers and everybody's a student. Everybody is a student. Everybody, I learn from everybody. I learn from people, what you guys are putting in the chat. So it is a two-way street. That's all I want to say. But I appreciate Ms. Frida calling in. With that, I yield the mic.
Mic check. I'm off mute.
You're off mute now. What you gonna say?
Got a question. So when we get our census, can we take it and get it notarized before sending it back in? I believe that was the question she had pointed up to.
Yes, you can.
Question again. So when we get the census, can we take it and get it notarized before sending it back in?
Yes, you can. Yeah, you can fill it out. Remember, this is if you're doing it manually. So either you have them mail it to you, I mean the Census Bureau, have them mail it to you, or they can email it to you, or you can just download it from the site, fill it out, print it out, take it to your notary. Your notary will sign it and stamp it and put a seal on it. Take the copy of that notarized census, send it to your Census Bureau. Keep the original in your files. Never send the original, always send a copy.
You know what's funny from reading the track that stuck out to me, has always been interesting to me? An African can come to the United States of America and he can be naturalized, but the so-called African American never can. In order to be naturalized, you have to know your mother country and your mother language to denounce it.
Whoa.
Can you say it again?
Say it again.
In order to be naturalized, you have to know your mother country name and your mother's language to denounce it. Think about it. To become a U.S. citizen, you're denouncing your mother country citizenship and taking on a new one. But where's this African American country at on this planet?
Interesting.
What's the African American indigenous language? I'm just saying.
Hey man, it's on the census.
You say make no senses.
Oh yeah, you're right.
That's crazy.
Miss Nomad.
But that's why it's always been called a misnomer. You got European scholars that'll tell you the term African American is a misnomer.
Wait a minute. So you telling me that the Prince of Zamunda can come over here and renounce his throne?
Yes, he can to become a U.S. citizen. An African American cannot. That's why you can never be a naturalized citizen.
He did it on the subway.
Didn't the Prince of Zamunda renounce his throne on the subway?
Yep.
You really a prince?
Yep.
I'd marry you.
I was just about to say, and he got offered a fiance. A new fiance. Come on, buddy.
Look at the process to become a citizen. You can never partake in that process because you're missing some of the key ingredients were taken from you. You became a citizen by default. You became a ward of the state, completely different. What's the word? They considered the Indian indigent. Therefore, classing you as a minor, a minority in society, not meaning numbers, meaning your mental state, your capacity to be in their civilization. You're a minor. You need somebody to think for you. You need somebody to plan for you. That's basically what they've been saying the whole time.
Yep, you're a child, a ward of the state.
Isn't that the way the Democrats treat minorities? Like a child, a ward of the state, because they can't do things by themselves?
Yep.
An uneducated adult that need educated adults to think for them, act for them, protect them.
Becoming a black man or a black woman.
And always convincing you to subscribe to subgroups that don't apply to you because they did so much for you, so you in turn need to do something for them.
Help the women's movement. They always been supporting you. Let me get that black bitch you got in the air. We finna give that to these women.
You can have that.
Take that afro out. Take that pick out that afro.
Because the last time I checked,
Give it a little afro pick. Just keep the hand in the air. Women's liberation.
they were talking about, again, I am woman, hear me roar, but last time I checked, Birth of a Nation, not the one that came out a couple of years ago, but the original Birth of a Nation, the silent film, was based upon us having representation in Washington, D.C. And everybody was afraid that we were going to do payback, which is why they started coming up with these crazy gun laws with the NRA. So if we didn't have representation, then what are these women talking about when it came to having proper representation? And that started back then, and the lines continue to be drawn. So you go ahead and keep filling yourself and aligning yourself with these subgroups if you want to, because we were matrilineal. They were not. So yes, their women were not considered anything. Because if you notice again, you keep reading that these Europeans were marrying these Indian women, and not just regular Indian women, but influential Indian women that had a direct lineage to the chief. Think about it.
James, you just said something. You made me think about something. You said, or somebody in the chat said, that the slaves were the children of the European man, right? Hello?
Well, the status fell upon your mother. So if your mother was free, you were free. The slave. Well, in turn, what they were talking about the Slavs, which we know those that were coming over here to work, they were Slavs. But in the sense when they're talking about the Indians had slaves, now this was switched around once you had those mulattoes, aka mestizos, aka Matisse, that were in Europe, flat out Europeans that were placed in charge of the chiefdoms, these different tribes, that slavery took on a different meaning. But prior to that, it was if you lost a war, that tribe that lost the war became the quote unquote slaves of the tribe that won the war.
Right.
That you married into the family.
Right.
So it was same blood to prevent the war. But you have what was Slavs, as we talked about before, with no E, that were coming over here. That's why you had Czechoslovakia, Yugoslavia. These were all of these Slavs that were coming over here working the cotton. That's why I had put before about the video of my elders talking about who was working the cotton mill. When they talked about, these people lived on the south side of town, and they lived in these little one-room shacks, and literally what they were, and they were the cotton pickers, not our people. So
this is what I'm thinking. The term kill the Indian, save the man, save the man. Well, the man would be the European. Who was the European marrying to get a child? The Indian. If the Indian, if the offspring went with the Indian, that would make him a what? An Indian. If the offspring went with the man, what would that make him? A man or a slave of a man, right?
What if it saved the slaves?
Say again.
Kill the Indian, save the slave?
Well, well, at the end of the day, you kill the Indian by getting rid of the woman.
So right now,
Or you convince the woman that her half European child in the European way is the better way to save the tribe. So now you recruiting more slaves, more men. And that's what, as you notice, that's what was happening, is that you had these mothers, as we talked about months ago, everything is coming full circle, is how these mothers were saying, well, this is my baby and my baby is right. So if your baby is saying, go the way of the European, because everything's gonna be all right and we're not gonna have to fight anymore. So let's just go ahead and sign these treaties and give them this land so we can all live in harmony. But then you have these chiefs living where? Over in Europe. And they're making all decisions, absentee landlord. So now you have left the people at the beck and call of the colonizers that were coming over. So now you just made a whole group of slaves. And you living high on the hog. It's man, I can say, I don't want to get it too deep into that because I'm gonna try to keep it cordial today. I yield the mic.
This is the reason why genealogy is so important, because if you don't do your genealogy, you can't become an Indian. You will always say a man, and you will always be subject to a man. To keep it as simple as possible. Kill the Indian, save the man is nothing more than keep you from knowing who your mother is or how you tie it to your tribes. So it doesn't matter what title that you claim if it doesn't tie back to who your matrilineal ancestors are. You're still going to be labeled as a man. You're still going to be up under their jurisdiction. You're still going to be a minor. I don't care if you call yourself a Moor or if you call yourself a Cherokee. So, something to think about. Goes back to who named you. Your mama named you, you an Indian. If your daddy named you, you're a man. So. All right, so let's go ahead and let these good people get on up out of here and enjoy their Tuesday. I almost said Monday. Yesterday was Monday. So no sellout. What you want to say to people before we get on up out of here this rising?
Yes. No. Peace and grand rising to everybody that showed up today. All the ones listening in, thank y'all for being here. Peace to the panel, Bones, TMH, James, appreciate you. Yeah, the number works. Thank you, Frida. Shout out. Yeah, y'all have a great grand rest of your day, and we'll see y'all tomorrow. Peace, y'all.
James, Choctaw Jimmy, what you got for the people before we head on out?
Just to remember that, as Brother No Sellout always says, it's about the timelines, man. The timelines. All these wars going on, Pirates of the Caribbean, everybody running down to Florida, getting guns and supplies and coming back, recouping. Don't forget, a few years before this so-called RedStick War, which is still a continuation of the War of Independence, really didn't stop because these battles continued, which is really a continuation of the French-Indian War. And they keep trying to tell you, oh, these different sections here and this different group here, but it's involving the same people. Don't forget, just before that, you had, again, these Cimarroons, AKA Seminoles, going and giving supplies to the Haitians. You think the Haitians, like, you on an island, you just got no stuff for yourself to rebel, and you gonna just, slobber knock the French Navy? Just, a few people with a couple of sticks and stuff? Nah. I told you, again, this was not just a couple of revolts, a couple of rebellions here and there. You got to look at the Hall Creek Wars. You got to look at the German rebellion. They call it the German Rebellion, but it was us again. And I hate to use that term, that was us, but it was us. When you looking all throughout the South, look at these Redsticks, and going back to the Redsticks, and it takes you back to the Red House in Chichen Itza. And you're gonna find out. And I don't want to start a extended Puff Daddy, P Diddy, Sean Diddy, Daddy Combs, Love Combs remix, extended remix. So I'm gonna put a word, I'm gonna put a name of what was called a group of people in the back chat and why they were called, and you're gonna see the significance again, how the Itza played their role that they never mention, you all, because they have to, oh, these guys had a navy. As you see, we have found out today, hey, these Indians had a railroad. They actually had networking going on. So we know they had paved roads, thanks Natchez. We know that they had the waterways, thanks Itza. And now we're coming to find out we had the railroad. Man, wasn't savages after all. So I want to say again to the greatest chat in the cosmos, keep doing what you're doing. To Miss Frida that's called in, I'm glad that you're listening in and contributing, because it makes the show so much more fluid when that happens. To Brother Kerry Bay, Brother Copper Indio, Lady Free, to Thomas, Brother Bones, Brother No Sellout. And I gotta give a shout out to my homeboy, DJ Premier, the philanthropist. Keep doing what you're doing, keep banging, keep watching those Redsticks, and do what you do. Brother Thomas, I'm off this cotton picking mic. Philanthropist, shout out to you. Take a pill a day. I'm out.
And I gotta go after that, huh? All right. I wish my mute button would have hit a little bit longer. So, I want to send a shout out again to the new subscribers, to the Tigers Assembly Silent Majority, and to the best chat on earth. We appreciate y'all and all y'all do. I want to thank everyone on the panel, everyone part of A2, everyone that supports. Thank you. Y'all made my job so much easier. Again, we all about people do the genealogy. That's the reason why we do this. So today, I hope you was able to learn why it's important to know the names of the tribe, so that you're trying into the right tribe and trying to get to be a part of the correct tribe. So instead of looking for Muskogee, well, listen, Muskogee, you might want to look up Uli, U-L-L-I. Instead of Creek, don't just stop at Creek. What about Alabama? So, something to think about. Hopefully this helps. Hopefully it was beneficial for y'all. Look forward to speaking with y'all on the Rising, bringing you more information on the RedStick Wars and how it impacted the Louis and how it impacted Alabama. I got to do some research on the stockade in Florida for the Indians, see what they were actually doing over there. So, yeah, it's gonna be fun. David Corey said, "Where's the shout out?" David, you part of the chat. You always get shouted out. You get roll call. You get all that. I tell you. Anyway, I'm gonna turn over the mic to Bones H. McCoy so he can give his salutations and lead us out. All right, I'll link to the mic.
I appreciate that, TMH. Thanks again, TMH, No Sellout, James Flames, for the work that y'all put every rising to make this one of the best shows I've ever been a part of. Say that hands down. To the chat, David Corey, since you need a special shout out, like to thank all of you for the work that y'all put in on the show. Not just coming to listen, but asking the questions so this conversation keeps going. Also thank the ones that really don't participate in the chat, but take the information and apply it to their lives. We're going to leave out with this. For every rising show we do, it's another part of our story that we unlock. And I'm going to say this again. Let's make sure as we unlock our story that it never gets locked away from us again. We must take on the responsibility of documenting our stories, being the overseers of our stories. If we want to get it correct and make sure it maintains its credibility and its truthfulness, then we must all come to action. We must all play a part in this. So on that note, everyone continue to have a very, very blissful day. And until the next Rising Show, peace.
Peace, y'all. See how that perks?
Okay, buddy.
Time for the percolator.